Birth Boot Camp podcast. I'm Holly Hopley, the CEO.
I'm Cheryl Ameling, the certification coordinator.
And we are really excited because we have two new hosts that are joining us today. If you've followed us, you might have seen that we have two new members to our headquarters team. So we have Liana Wolf as our new admin, and we have Megan Busk as our new head of marketing. And so this is Liana's podcasted with us before, but this is Megan's first time, but we're excited to have them as part of the team. And so they're going to be helping us host the Birth Boot Camp podcast now. And we're really excited about that. I think they are too, maybe a little nervous. I don't know. But so today and next week, we're going to kind of spotlight them. We kind of put them in the hot seat a little bit so that you can kind of get to know them better. And kind of hear about how they got into birth work and all that kind of fun stuff. So today we're going to start with Liana, and then next week tune in and we're going to get to know Megan some more. So we've got Liana here ready to just tell us all the things. So will you just start real quick with a quick introduction? Like, where are you from, your family, kids, maybe even tell us a little bit about your own birth stories briefly, all that kind of fun stuff.
Oh, brief birth stories. I don't know if I can do that. I'm Liana Wolf, and I live in Denver, Colorado. I was raised in Phoenix, Arizona. My husband and I have been married for almost 15 years. He is a middle school English teacher. We have 3 kids. Luke is 11, Elliot is 9, and Autumn is 7. Oh, so yeah, we are entering middle school with our oldest, which is kind of exciting and kind of nerve-wracking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, the birth stories. I mean, I know we've talked before about how every birth is different, not just with different people, but even within one person. One person can have dramatically different births. Our first, we were induced after 41 weeks because that was before I knew anything. And our OB was fantastic. He was like, we're not going to push Pitocin right away. We're going to do these smaller steps of Cervidil and then breaking water because baby was super low. So he considered it safe to do so. And I mean, contractions started and I had a baby 5 hours later.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty good.
Without Pitocin. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the time, if somebody had asked me, do you want to catch your baby? I would have been like, no. Why would I want to do that? That's weird. But the OB didn't ask me. He just said, reach down and grab your baby. So I did.
That's awesome.
That's really awesome.
he just told me to do it. So I did. And so we had phenomenally just a really great experience. And I know it's one of the few induction stories that has a great ending. But after that, I was like, we can do this without the hospital. And so for our second, we hired a midwife and we had a home birth and everything was great. And I woke up in labor and kind of labored on and off all day. It was funny. We rented a townhome at the time, and our landlord actually had to come over that day and had a contraction right in the middle of a conversation with him, and he freaked. Unmarried, childless. He was just like, oh my gosh, do you need to go to the hospital? And I was like, no, it's fine. Like, I've got hours. And just, I think I panicked him just a little bit.
Yeah.
But, later on, we had our birth tub, and one of my best friends was there to take care of our oldest, who wasn't quite 2. And Elliot our midwife called him a backpack baby. his cord was just like crisscrossed over his back.
Oh.
And so he was just like all tangled up. And so, yeah. And you know how when baby's head is out and you're like, okay, I can breathe for a second. And she was like, no, you can't. You can't. You
Wow.
have to push this baby out. Because, you know, afterwards I found out, oh, that's why, because his cord was being compressed, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't have time to tell you all of that in the moment.
Right.
And so she had to give him just a little puff of air before handing him to me. And but yeah, that was him. But I also decided I didn't want to have another water birth after that. Like, it was fine, it was really nice, but I didn't like getting out of the tub. I know that sounds really weird, but I'm just like, I
No, it
don't
doesn't at
know.
all.
Can I just stay here? No, you can't.
Mm-hmm.
They don't talk about that.
Yep.
But we loved having our midwife. We loved doing it at home, and it was just really peaceful. And even with that brief concern at the very beginning of his life outside of me, it was just lovely. Our third, another home birth, but I was like, no, no water birth this time. I'll labor in the tub, but I don't. Once I got through transition, I was like, get me out, get me out. It was actually really funny. Our midwife, who was the same midwife from our second, she kept looking at our watch, and she said at some point, you know, everything's fine. Like, baby's heart rate is fine, but I kind of feel like you should have had this baby like 3 hours ago. Like, I had already gone through transition hours before, and just she was just like, I don't know what's going on, but baby's fine, so I'm not worried. So anybody want to guess? um she had her hand on her face, with her face up, not quite a face presentation, but like forehead presentation. And she was interesting. That was the first baby that I actually could feel her kicking inside of me as I was pushing. Like, she was actively trying to get out. And that's just a really weird sensation.
Yeah.
So yeah, so my midwife again had to give her a little puff of air, and she likes to joke that my babies wanted a kiss from her first before me. I'm like, that's rude, but she meant it in a lovely way. But yeah, so she was all purple when she was born because her face was bruised. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I was a surrogate twice. I don't know if you want me to go through those birth stories.
I mean, briefly, why not? We got time.
Okay. The first one, so this would be my fourth pregnancy. It was my easiest pregnancy, easiest labor, easiest delivery. Like, just the easiest one all around. And woke up in labor, went to the hospital a couple hours later. Because we were a surrogate, we opted not to do a home birth because the logistics were just weird. So we tried to do a birth center. The parents were really supportive of whatever I wanted to do. But the birth centers didn't line up with our insurance. So we did midwives at the hospital who were great. But yeah, I mean, again, start to finish, it was like 5 hours. And I mean, I pushed like twice, and it was just wonderful. It was like a very textbook. Everything went perfect. And then her sister came along. So my fifth pregnancy, and it was my hardest pregnancy and my hardest labor and the hardest delivery. And yeah, it just didn't seem fair that I had to end on that note.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we ended up having to be induced at 40 weeks for early preeclampsia numbers. And since I was 40 weeks and I had already had 4 vaginal deliveries, I was like, fine, let's do it. I'm not even going to talk about waiting. It's fine. Let's just do it.
Right.
And yeah, so that was with Pitocin. So that was my first experience with Pitocin. And that was not fun. It really wasn't. And then adding insult to injury, baby had shoulder dystocia.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, first of all, before that, I found myself put into Walters because baby was super high up still. And I've put clients into Walters, but I've never been in one myself while in labor. And that was I have newfound empathy
Yep.
for my clients if I have to put them in Walters.
Right. Yep.
Ugh. So yeah, shoulder dystocia, which meant I found myself flat on my back, knees up to my ears. You know, there's no time for them to tell me anything. The parents are shoved to the side because the NICU nurses are in, and they're just crying, freaking out, not knowing what to do or what's going on.
Right.
Yeah, and so when she was born, they're checking her over. Wonderfully, she didn't have dislocated shoulder. Her collarbone wasn't broken, any of the things that are pretty common with shoulder dystocia. The midwife was just fantastic at wiggling her out. And then my husband, who lovely, once he knew I was okay and we heard baby crying, he like goes around the group of all the providers and just puts his arms around the parents and it's just like, they're okay, because they're just crying because they don't know what's going on. It was just really, really sweet.
Yeah.
He's lovely.
That's like a good ending to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, so how did you get into birth work and how long have you been doing this?
Well, I've been an instructor for 6 years almost, and a doula for almost 5 years. My husband is actually the one who nudged me into birth work. When we were pregnant with my second, I was doing all the research because we were planning a home birth. So I felt like we needed a lot more information, and I was just eating it up. And every time he would come home from work, I'd be like, oh my gosh, you have to hear about this thing that I read about, maternal care, or, the mortality rates, and just something that just blew my mind. And I was watching birth videos all over the place. And he was like, you need to do something about this weird habit of just like watching birth videos for fun. I was like, it's research. He said, no, I think this might be something that you need to put some effort into. And so yeah, that kind of planted the bug and just kind of went from there.
I love that. What's your favorite part of birth work?
I mean, it's easy to say I love the birth because the birth is always magical.
Right.
I love how it's always different. I love how I never know what to expect. When I walk in that room, I don't know what's going to be there. And that really just gets my adrenaline going. And I love it. I love the not knowing. I love flying by the seat of my pants and, problem solving, just going in and being like, all right, what do we need to do? It really gets my energy up.
I love that. What's the birth climate like where you live, and what are some challenges that you find kind of in your area?
Denver is pretty great in terms of the birth climate. There are a lot of doulas. Colorado in general, especially the eastern side, has seems to be really, really opening up in the last 5, 8 years to doulas, and there's a ton of nurse midwives. Almost every single hospital has nurse midwives on staff or who have
Awesome.
privileges there. Um, so it's really, really great. It's becoming more rare that I come across somebody who goes, "What do you do?" And I say, "I do childbirth education and I'm a birth doula." And they go, "Oh, so is that like a midwife?" That doesn't
Mhm.
happen as often anymore
Yeah.
um, than it did at first. As far as the biggest challenge is, I feel like I'm kind of in this weird pocket in Denver where politically it's a little more conservative. And for some reason, that tends to equate to more acceptance of just doing what the doctor tells you to do. That's just been my experience. I don't know if other doulas have that experience, but it seems it's been kind of hard to break through that area.
Mhm.
And I don't know. It's really weird. And same with the education. It seems to be within my area and outside of my area, people are really quick to promote doulas, but they're not as quick to promote the education side of it. Like a doula will just cover everything. And so it's kind of hard to encourage them, hey, you need a little more than what your doula can
Yeah.
give you, because unless they're really committing to weeks of education with you, they're really, I mean, they can't give you all of the information in those little bite-sized moments of prenatal visits.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
I'll I'll totally say too, like living because Megan and I both live in a very conservative area, and it's I have found the same thing of
Mm.
what you were talking about is that they tend to just be, yeah, more. You just go and do what the doctor says.
Mm.
Which is also very interesting though, because Utah has one of the lowest C-section rates in the
Huh.
country.
Mm.
And we also have one of the highest home birth rates in the country. So it's like, it's so weird that we have some of those statistics. Because I think they said just from May 30th, like, I mean, just the end of May that just happened through the first of the year, we are at 4.5% had a home birth and out of hospital birth. Like that's huge because most of the rest of the country is less than 2.
Yeah, that is huge.
But yeah,
That's
so it's very interesting because I see that a lot too. I totally see that. Well, I just go and do what my doctor says, and there's not a lot of effort put into like the research and learning, and so it's interesting that you said that.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
interesting. I live in a super conservative area too, but I feel like I mostly work with out of hospital birth people. And so they already tend to be well, I'm going to research and I'm not going to, I mean, not that I don't have hospital couples who are also super well researched, but that's so interesting. I don't know. I think I end
Mhm.
up with like kind of more interesting students just because of the like where I teach, basically.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I find all this stuff really, really fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you love about birth boot camp?
Oh man. Well, I chose birth boot camp to train with because we had taken a different birth class before our first. And at the time, we thought it was pretty great and covered all the things. But then once we were past 41 weeks and we asked our instructor, what do we do? Um, she was just kind of like, well, I guess you should do whatever your OB recommends. And we were like, but why did we take a 12-week class with you if you're just going to tell us to just do what the OB said? It just didn't work. It didn't make sense at the end. And so when I was looking at who to train with, um, I looked at all of the big name companies and they didn't really jive. And I felt like it was missing information. And when I came across Birth Boot Camp, um, I love the whole concept of the toolbox. And it's not just it's not a way to give birth. It's not a method. It's not, I'm going to teach you how to give birth this way. It's, I'm going to give you all of this information and hopefully you're only going to need 10% of it. But on the off chance that you need any of that other 90% of information, you have it. So you're not blindsided by something that comes up, because birth can go sideways sometimes. And if you don't know what's going on, it's scary. Even if it's not an emergency, it can still be really scary if you don't know what's happening.
I love that, because there are so many times where people are taking specific ideas or saying techniques, different things that different classes that they're taking, but then it doesn't go as they see in the videos or as the instructor says this is going to happen, and then they don't know what to do. And I've had clients who are like, what did I do wrong? How come it didn't work out this way? And so being able to just have like an umbrella of the birth boot camp knowledge and being able to tailor that to whatever way you're birthing is so incredible. So I love that you said that. So tell us about your new role at Birth Boot Camp. What do you do? And what are you excited about?
Well, I'll do the excitement part first. I'm really excited. Like I said, I've been a part of Birth Boot Camp for 6 years almost. And I love the community feeling. And, I've never been a part of headquarters, but I've worked with headquarters before when Donna, our founder, was still the CEO. Those of you who have been here for a while will recognize me from doing the labor video from a couple recordings back. I don't remember which one.
That was just the last one.
Just the last one. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I've worked with headquarters before. Haley did my doula training, but I've never been a part of it. But I've been on the outskirts, and so I really loved the camaraderie between everybody and just how they work together and brainstorming ideas. And even then, I still didn't really know the inner workings. But either way, when I was invited to interview for this position, I was really super stoked. And I said to myself, even if you don't get it, I'm just really flattered that I was thought of. But yeah, and then, so my role as administrator is I do a lot of behind the scenes work. So I'm the one fulfilling those makeup classes when instructors are sending those in. When they set up hybrid classes, I'm setting those up. Whenever online orders come in, I don't have to start anything there, but I'm transferring it over to spreadsheets and I'm doing emails. It's admin work. So, I do a little bit of shipping things for online students. But yeah, mostly behind the scenes, except for this podcast work.
Well, we're glad you're here.
You'll be in videos soon enough too. We could not do this without your role. So we're super excited to have you.
Yeah.
Let's see here. With adding in new things and new responsibilities, people always ask headquarters this. They're like, how do you guys do it? How do you manage things? How do you do all the things, especially with our own, we each all have our own local businesses too. So do you have any tips or anything like that you would share maybe with our doulas and instructors or anyone really?
It really helps to have a supportive partner. Big time. I I give major props to the single moms who are busting their butts, especially running their own business and raising their kids, because I don't know how I would do any of this without my husband. Him being a teacher means we rarely have to seek outside care for our kids when I get called to a birth. His schedule is changing this fall for his school, so it's going to be even better for us for when I am inevitably at a birth in the wee hours of the morning, because that's the majority of the births. You're there in the
Yep.
wee hours of the morning. And it just, I really don't know how people do it without supportive people in their lives. And when I think about right now, I mean, I'm married, I have my kids, I have my business, and then now I'm on HQ. But honestly, Holly and Cheryl, I look at you and I'm like, you guys are working full time with your own businesses and you're homeschooling. And I don't even have the homeschooling thing under. So when I when I think about you guys homeschooling on top of it, I'm like, I can't complain. And I know we don't compare. That's not a thing, but still, it's just like, this is fine. This is totally fine. I've got this. And it's just making sure I compartmentalize what I'm doing. Like right now, my husband's out of town, so my kids are upstairs watching a movie. And they're old enough that I can leave them for a couple of hours and they're not going to set anything on fire. So that's helpful.
Yeah. It's great when you get to that age. You know, the house is safe.
We are not quite there yet. My toddler was coloring all over the floor with the marker just an hour ago. So
You'll get there. It is.
I
It's
have
like
one of those.
freeing when they get to that point. I mean, my youngest is 4 and he's a handful. Everybody here knows Cameron. He's a handful, but you will get to that point when you're like, wow, like it like opens up freedom.
Yeah. The house
So
is safe. It's always a nice stage to get to.
yeah.
So tell us, what do you do for fun, or tell us your hobbies, little known facts about Liana Wolf, things like
Oh
that.
gosh, those are the worst. Well, I live in Colorado, so I feel like you're almost required to like being outside when you live in Colorado. So now that
Yeah, it is required.
now that it's warming up and it's, with the exception of the afternoon thunderstorms, which are actually really great because they cool everything down. It's going to be cool this next weekend, but for the most part, it's like, yay, we get to be outside. And almost every day this week, the kids have been outside throwing water balloons at each other. And I was doing it too yesterday because it was fun. And so I love being outside. We love camping as a family, and I love paddle boarding. And again, my husband's great because he's like, go out on the lake, like be by yourself for a couple hours on the water, and then we'll swap and he'll go kayak for a little bit. So this is when we're camping. Just we're pretty good at swapping care so we don't lose our children in the forest or anything. And
You haven't quite reached that age where they don't run down the house, but they can still get lost in the forest.
yeah, I mean, they haven't quite mastered the map reading skills. They're all in scouts, but it's early.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Have they been on the water much?
They have. They love being out on the paddleboard with me and or in the kayak with my husband. Friends of ours have a kid kayak. And we were like, I don't know if they're ready for it. This was last summer. And oh gosh, all 3 of them just took to it like ducks, just no problem.
That's my kids too. They love it.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, maybe we're going to have to start looking at, Facebook Marketplace or something, find a couple used kids kayaks so they can go out.
Yeah, we'll have to chat.
And luckily none of mine fight the life jackets, because that's zero tolerance on that, where
Yep.
you're getting in the lake, you are wearing a life jacket. I don't care how many swim lessons you've taken.
Yep.
So luckily
Yeah.
they're all
Oh yeah.
amenable to that. But like talked about being outdoors, but I also love reading. So I love curling up with a good book. And even when we're camping, sometimes I'm just like, will you just go take the kids on a hike? And I'm just going to be in the hammock and read a book. I just need to just be in myself for a little bit. So
Yeah.
even though I'm a super extrovert, I still like to get lost in other worlds sometimes.
Do you have a favorite genre?
Oh, rom-coms. Yeah,
Yep.
I love
because
it.
I love mysteries and I love thrillers, but if I'm looking to escape, I like lighthearted, just it's okay for me to put the book down and walk away from it and come back days later. Those mysteries, man, I won't put them down. And then it's 4 a.m. and it's just not good.
Yep.
What's your favorite book you've read recently?
There's an author called Lucy Score.
Oh, her stuff is great.
Isn't it amazing?
It's
I
good.
love her stuff. Yeah, she's just great. Trying to think of the last book I read though, because I don't think it was hers. I don't remember.
I never remember either, so don't worry.
Sometimes I've got two.
That's what I use Goodreads for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. I just looked her up. She's gonna be on my okay. All
Yep,
right,
she's good.
cool. I do Audible. So I like put it in my ear while I'm doing dishes, and I'm listening to some thriller thing right now, I think. But after that, I'll move on to Lucy's Score.
You won't regret it.
Okay, can't wait.
Awesome. Well, we're super excited to have you with us, and it's fun to get to know you a little bit better. Let's see, we've been working together for 2 weeks now. I think it's been, and yeah, it's been great so far. So we're super excited.
Well,
all right.
Happy
Well,
to
this
be
was
here.
fun. Okay. If anybody listening has any fun questions for Liana, feel free to let us know. Send us a message or comment or anything like that. But yeah, and then tune in next week and you'll get to know Megan. And then we'll go from there. We'll continue the Birth Boot Camp podcast. So thanks for listening, everybody. Stay tuned and we will talk to you guys next week.